we have the next two speakers mic'd up. Next, it will be a fireside chat, the advanced guide in expanding abroad. And we have Natalie. Please come on the stage, Natalie already. She's the research lead at tech.eu, and she's been over 30 countries, being a great advocate for startups. And then we have Jussi from Adyen. He's the senior vice president at the business development. And if I'm not mistaken, Adyen was one of the first partners with Skype when they started doing payments back in 2005. Am I wrong, or could it be true? Somewhat. Very good. So please come on the stage. Your chairs are there. We are all mic'd up. Give them a big applause.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you so much, Jussi, for coming back to TechChill. This is your second time here on stage, so thanks for being here.
No, thank you for inviting, and keep asking us coming back.
Wonderful, wonderful. And Adyen is such a really incredible company to watch from a European perspective, and it might be familiar to you in the room, but if you've never heard of Adyen and you just kind of see it around the venue here. Can you tell us a little bit about it? What do you do, and where did it come from?
On a fun side, we paint everything green, as you can see. No,
green is the color of the event this year, and so you're right on brand there.
Right on brand, thanks to our marketing as well. Now, we're a tech company. We're providing payments seamlessly across the world for any merchant of any size, and we do that across any sales channel available.
But there's a bit more to it there. You're not just a European payments company. You're one of the real success stories in Europe that I think, especially coming from the research side and understanding the landscape, Adyen's story is one that I think is a real inspirational one for founders in Europe to really look to see what's possible.
That's true. I mean, we didn't start out this big, believe it or not, but we came from a humble background where we just did a part of payments. And we expanded as we grew together with our merchants. It's kind of one of our 3 pillars of the company principles. Always help our merchants grow, and that's also what we've been doing ourselves.
So can we talk a little bit about you and kind of how you came into Adyen and what your role is there?
Yeah, so I got a sneak peek of Adyen while working at PayPal, also another payments company with a different focus, more focused on the payment method, connecting global customers anywhere, doing secure transactions. But then I stumbled across Adyen during my time at PayPal. I saw the opportunity on what they could provide as a technical platform for companies scaling fastly globally. And at that time, there were a couple of companies you heard about, Uber and other big names like Spotify. And you just saw the growth like 6 years ago from those companies, and today they've also more than 10x their volumes, and thus we've been also growing with them.
So that was kind of what was attractive to joining the company, that you could be on the ride with a firm like that.
That's one, but the second is that really speaks to us is our culture. We have 8 values that we call the Adyen formula, and what we like to think it's a guideline of you or how you want to conduct your business, also towards merchants, but also how you want to be perceived internally. Maybe not all of 8 going to speak to you, but you can at least pick a couple of these and make them personal. And that's also that we see with the great people that we hire. This tends to stick with them, and they also like to be working with us, and that's how we keep the culture going.
Yeah, and something for the startups in the room that are looking at expanding and growing the team, having that strong culture and those values from the early days, that is something that's flexible, that can grow with you, is really important.
Yeah, on the side note, we didn't have the formula when I started. So that came along like 4 years ago. But it's been, I mean, the culture has been there from the start, so it's nothing surprising about these 8 formulas, but it was well thought of exercise with the management team for a couple of months.
Yeah, and one of the parts of this formula is winning is more important than ego.
Yeah.
And kind of that, you know, we work as a team all across the world, but it only works because we have this vision, that it's a collective vision.
That's true, and it's also one thing that is quite unique to Adyen, a company of this size working in the financial services space, is we only have one P&L. It's truly one company. You can also feel that because anything we do, we like to think that we don't want to customize. That's another one of our formulas. We build something to benefit all, not just one. That also helps us scale. So that's a core principle I also like to take into heart with together works really well with winning is more important than ego.
And kind of as you've grown, you have different team members distributed all over the world. And something I think, especially from the Baltic perspective, is that often we're working with distributed teams, sometimes at a very early stage. So what are some of the strategies and tactics and techniques you've used in your work at Adyen to keep the whole team together and committed to this collective vision?
One of the things that the founders have been really strict on is that we do all tech developed by ourselves in-house. We like to keep the tech as close together as they can. They all sit in Amsterdam, for instance. But then we have other departments, of course, and that we truly believe in the local presence. I mean, we don't have an office right here in Riga, but we take care of that from the Stockholm office. But we understand the local culture. We're here and we help the merchants grow together with them, with our account managers and marketing teams, etc. Make sure that we're always also on the ground, not just being some big company somewhere in the cloud.
And something that you just mentioned about the tech, we want all the tech in-house. So we've been taking payments from one another since the beginning of humankind. But what makes your company unique is that you've really built this tech stack that is quite sophisticated. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, payments has a lot of different parts of it. If you look at a value chain across payments, from actually when you press buy with whatever payment method you happen to select, that payment transaction typically goes between 4 or 5 instances before it actually comes back to you, hopefully with a successful response. That's what we've tried to simplify with just one tech stack, but we didn't start out that way. It came to us because of the merchants demanding this. They were saying, can you solve a problem, which is we're actually getting more and more declined transactions, or we can't scale globally, we're lacking payment methods, and all of these things led to us actually building this tech stack all the way, and we're unique in that sense. You might come across another payments company, but nobody has built this deep tech stack. That allows us to expand our product portfolio in different verticals like in-store payments, launching in different regions and so on. So this has been really helpful as well.
Yeah, and really that's the outcome of having this customer focus, is that, how can we serve these merchants the best? And that has developed where you are today.
Yeah, it's truly a collaborative development that we've seen together with our merchants. And it's not us sitting with a crystal ball saying this is going to be the future. We're taking in the requests, making sure that we can also supply a good service, both from a regulatory perspective, but also from a tech perspective, account management perspective, and so on. Ask the rest of the merchant base, does this make sense? And when it does, yes, we try to be the quickest to launch and make sure that we have it available for everyone to use. And also another key point here is we've never charged for any development. We charge per transaction. That's quite unique also. I mean, the service is there, and the network possibilities of you tapping into the tech that actually Uber uses or Spotify, that's a great power to be having, even if you're a small startup.
And you've really seen that by working kind of very closely with these merchants in different markets. You've seen kind of the challenges that they're experiencing as they're growing. And when they're looking to expand, what are some of the things, especially for the startups in the room, that are thinking about kind of, maybe is it time to go outside of the home market? What are some of the things that they should be focused on?
It's a great question, and that can be also put back to the companies. Depends on what type of data you want to be looking at. But cohort analysis is something that we typically see when we talk to startups that they could possibly improve on. I mean, looking at metrics like the last 7 days or the last month, how many active users you have, make a segment of those and make sure that you also apply that across regions, across times as well, because that can make a difference. If you have a subscription base, for instance. And when you look at these type of data, you're going to be sure that whenever you tap into a market, just try it out if you can do it cross-border before you start up a legal entity and go through all those steps. Try small, launch fast, read the data, and then scale as fast as possible.
Right, and when it comes to looking at kind of that next market, to make that first move, say coming right out of the Baltic region, for startups here, what are some of the kind of things they should be looking at in that prospective market that kind of suggests, you know, this might be a good fit for my product or service?
Good question. I mean, if everybody would knew that, they would have started a company right now, I guess. But on that note, have you seen a couple of companies just trying out sending? I mean, Facebook is still a gold mine if you want to be doing some targeted ads. It's still relatively cheap. You can try it out, get some customers in through the funnel. And the good thing with payments is we have a couple of successful companies doing this. They just have an international site in English, but then you come across to the checkout, and then it's actually customized with local payment methods, but also sometimes in local language. And that can truly make a difference if you want to be presenting something to the customer, and you're going to feel like, oh, they're really speaking to me here. And then you're going to get them across and actually make them to buy something.
Yeah, so kind of thinking about expansion, really kind of maintaining that kind of very close customer relationship. So rather than presenting something that's more general, something that is very tailored to that customer experience.
Correct. I mean, that's the moment of truth, actually. Are they going to buy or not?
And kind of thinking on the flip side, what are some of the mistakes that you see kind of with some of the merchants you work with when they're looking to expand abroad, some of the pain points that are coming up that maybe we might not think of when it comes to expanding?
We've seen a couple of examples. One is you try to do a bit too much, and then you might not be sure that you have a desired criteria that you're working against. I mean, it's great to have an end goal, but what are actually the milestones in between that you want to accomplish? And we like to think and also take in any requests that we get from our partners and merchants on this regard, so we can be sure that we cater our solution to them as well.
Right, and kind of being able to isolate these different factors that might be inherent in a new market as compared to the home market, how they might be acting differently.
Correct.
Great. So you've had a chance to work with some of the kind of biggest companies around and some really exciting examples. Bolt is here, Martin's speaking, but Adyen works with Bolt. And can you talk a little bit about the expansion as this company has scaled and grown so fast? Maybe not specifically about their experience, but with the companies you're looking at, how do their needs change as they grow when it comes to payment solutions and working with payment providers?
It's a good question. I mean, if you look at this type of space, you're looking at digital space, it's been growing quite fast. I mean, for them, it's launching new markets, it's key. Second is having access to local payment methods, but better data as well and fraud solutions, because as you scale, you're also going to be targeted and having multiple eyes on you, and that can also lead to the fraudsters coming in and trying to flood the gates, so to speak, and really be attacking your solution. But in that regard, it's really, really important that you're not looking only at payments, but you're looking at the whole value chain and how your service is going to be up and running and so on, 24/7.
Yeah, and that's kind of a really interesting point about fraud and kind of how that applies in different markets. Is there anything that founders should be aware of that is something that might not be at the forefront of their minds as they think about moving abroad?
Yeah, that's another good question, but there's no solution out there or partner or merchant that's the same. Everything is unique, but the most important thing is that you have partners that you work with that can help you and actually guide you when these things happen. And we like to be there and consult our partners and merchants in the best way possible.
Great.
And be actually on our toes before it happens, so you're not only being a reactive partner.
Right, so kind of continually being part of monitoring and examining different potential threats or challenges.
Correct.
And really having the data to support that.
Correct, but that is also coming from a regulatory perspective. I mean, not too many here may be working with payments in particular, but if you have a company, well, you most likely are going to be accepting payments somehow. And there's big regulatory changes happening, PSD2 and so on, with strong customer authentication. It's not only a European standard anymore, but being on top of all these things, that's something that partners and merchants should be relying on us on.
Yeah.
And we like to be the first ones to help out.
And kind of in this space when it comes to regulation or fraud or kind of your experiences with seeing startups go into new markets. You've been in payments for a really long time.
Thank you.
Which is wonderful for your depth of experience here. So thinking about what are the things that continue to surprise you or things that are maybe new and unique that, that are something we need to focus on at this moment that maybe previously in your career, we never even thought about it being an issue, but it's changed over time?
Definitely the ways that consumers are behaving nowadays. Transaction volumes are increasing tenfold. If you're looking at from here and the coming 8 years, the transaction volumes are going to double. That also goes for the global economies. The opportunities are vast and big. But that also comes into the different ways of consumers, how they're interacting with payments. Maybe you're shopping online, but you want to conduct and complete the payment in store. But it can also be in a marketplace setup where you're actually splitting the payment between multiple sellers or even drivers and so on. And that payment can also be later on also split into another bank account or even a virtual card. I mean, all these possibilities lead to more transactions, but also a bigger value chain when it comes to payments, and we like to be there when it happens.
Right, and kind of thinking for startups here and thinking about transaction volume and thinking about expanding abroad, when it comes to choosing a payment provider or solution, you want a company that can really scale with you and grow with you. What are some of the things that you should be looking for when developing that partnership and kind of identifying who might be the right choice to go with?
Sure, I mean, set your expectations high. Of course, you want to be successful at some point. So really scrutinize the solution you're looking at, making sure that you can grow in the future, not only just for coming years. Something we hear from startups is really key is, of course, liquidity. Velocity of money is happening, and you need access to that cash. So having faster settlement times is one. Another key factor. Thirdly, you want to be catering to all sorts of customers out there, and the customer preferences are vast. I mean, we supply over 250 payment methods, and that's another key factor to weigh in the beginning. And of course, you want to be partnering. You don't want to supplier only. So make sure you like the people you talk to, and may have fun with them as well.
And kind of on this point about 250 different payment methods, that's something also you need to take into account when you're moving to a new market. It's kind of the practices that might be existing in one country might be existing very differently in your home market. And understanding the differences there. Is that something that payment provider would be able to provide support for?
Definitely, and they should. I mean, that's a good example of having a global company. We get requests from the Brazilian team or Singapore team or local teams in London and so on, and we have to be always on our toes, making sure that everything is available as the customer's demand is.
Right, so you've come to TechChill from a big payments event in Berlin with some of the biggest players out there, but it's important to be here with the startups. And what are some of the things that continue to inspire you about working with startups and being able to support them as they grow and expand?
I mean, just the energy and drive that you get and all the ideas that you hear from, that's what's actually expanding our solution as well. Of course, we like to be working with all companies from size 0 to perpetuity, and as big as they come. But something that startups, I mean, we were also a startup once, and you really see that drive and taking it to the next level. I mean, that's where we want to be.
Right, and
grow with
kind
our
of
customers.
keeping that part of the DNA is that continuing to strive and really be part of the journey of all these different companies that you're there to support at the end of the day.
I mean, looking at us as well, we're a big company maybe now, but we will also be looking at doing a 10x from here. I mean, the journey has just begun.
So thinking about that journey and that future, I know you can't say too much, but is there anything on the horizon that we should be looking out for from you in the future?
Truly watch this space. We're going out with our latest reports, and our reports are kind of fun, even to read. So you can be looking for that tonight. And secondly, I mean, as I said, we just begun. We're going to be looking at expanding our solutions together with our merchants, and any feedback is more than welcome to us.
Great, great. And what are some of the expansion that you think will be most exciting for startups to think about pursuing?
Well, for sure, we're seeing like the sharing economy is booming. We're looking at the rise of the super apps in this decade. And all of these things, I mean, it could be possible something from here comes up and it's just going to take care of that market. Or if it doesn't, have fun doing it anyways. But looking at the way transactions are happening and all the value parts and how they're flowing together, it's going to be an exciting space to be watching.
Wonderful. And kind of on the topic of exciting spaces and having fun, Adyen is a real supporter of TechChill and a supporter of all of you in the room. They are hosting a drinks and snacks in this room behind this wall at 3 p.m. So do make sure you come and visit. It's also one of these green rooms as well. And really, thank you so much for the conversation, and thank you for being a friend and supporter of TechChill.
No, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.